Well, good morning. I would like to call this meeting to order and welcome all members of council that are joining us both in person and virtually this morning. Welcome to all members of our staff that will provide us facts and information so we can make decisions in the best interests of our full-time and seasonal residents within ACW. Welcome also to all members of the public in attendance this morning and any media that may also be in attendance. Meetings of council are live streamed on the Township's official website in accordance with the live streaming and virtual participation of meetings policy. To start our meeting today, we have a very special years of service recognition. And ACW is very, very privileged to have dedicated and committed employees that choose to work in our municipality and stay here for a number of years. And we do recognize our employees on 5-year increments of their employment within ACW. And it is an absolute honor that we recognize 2 of our employees this morning. The first being Florence Witherspoon, our clerk, who has been here in the municipality for 10 years. We really appreciate her talent and her dedication. And also to Joy Lindsay, our Chief Building Officer. And we appreciate everything you do on behalf of all of the residents of ACW. So at this time, if it would be appropriate, Mr. Becker, to maybe go out into the foyer and have a picture with Joy and yourself. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, Joy and the mayor as well. So.
Okay, and so we will recess the meeting just for a couple of minutes to do that, and then we will resume. So the meeting is in recess. Thank
Kelly,
you.
if you could take the picture and maybe...
So again, congratulations to both our clerk, Florence Witherspoon, and Joy Lindsay, our Chief Building Officer, official. With that, do any members of council have a pecuniary interest to indicate at this time or potential conflict of interest of any agenda item that we have today? Thank you. We do have the minutes from the 18th of November, and I would entertain a mover and a seconder for these minutes, please. Councillor Forrester moves, Councillor Milton-Burke seconds, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council hereby adopts the November 18th, 2025 council meeting minutes as written. Do we have any questions on these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you. Open forum is an opportunity for any members of the public to make any comments that they would care to regarding any agenda item that we have today. There's a time limit of 5 minutes, and if you would like to make any comments, please go to the microphone, indicate your first and last name and the agenda item that you would like to address. Please, sir.
Good morning, Joe Bernier, and I would like to talk about the section 9.1, the short-term rental. Thank you, Your Honor and Council, as well as city staff, for the time to do this. I would like to thank them. It's been a long journey to get to this point. The bylaw, is it perfect? No. Is it set in stone? No. It is a bylaw that can be modified through positive and constructive input. It is something that is needed in ACW, not only across Ontario, but globally, which most municipalities have already implemented. We are a small township with few resources to have full-time dedicated individuals to address the issues of short-term rentals. But having rules in place can be used to slowly weed out the bad short-term renters or educate them enough through fines to be good neighbors. There have been ample time for input through surveys, public meetings, as well as an opportunity to send concerns via a website. You could also have attended the short-term committee meetings, council meetings, and asked to make presentations. I know I have done a few of them, and it would be interesting how many others have occurred. Utilizing the OPP to enforce noise complaints is not cost-effective, and is it wise to have the OPP to deal with where the resources are needed in other matters? Yes, there are a few bad apples in the STR basket, and the majority are well-run and respected within their community. But without rules, nothing can be done to control the properties that are wreaking havoc through the township. We moved here after retiring 9 years ago to our cottage that we built in 2000, and it was our dream. And there was no issues on the road until COVID. And that's when big city money saw an opportunity to make big dollars. We have 8 STRs on our road out of 28 cottages and homes. We are lucky enough to have one right beside us that advertises 20 plus, and there are 30 on a regular basis, and 80% of those weekends are stag weekends. With no rules, how can we get back to the paradise that we came to live out our life here? We were even looking to sell our dream and move at one point. One's dreams should not be more important than greed. In closing, I hope the other individuals that present today have positive input that will improve the current STR bylaw that is on the table today. I know council would take into consideration their thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bernier. Is there anyone else who would like to make any comments at open forum regarding any agenda at this time? Please.
Is the mic on? My name's Mary Lynn Snedden, and I'm speaking to the STR agenda item. I'm a short-term rental owner and longtime resident, and I'm asking you to not pass this bylaw. First, I don't believe this bylaw is necessary or evidence-based. We already have bylaws for noise, parking, garbage, and nuisance. Existing bylaws are treated as without teeth and unenforceable when renters are concerned, yet fully acceptable when the same behavior comes out of owner-occupied cottages. The committee cites a 1,000% increase in STR complaints, but this is simply an increase from 2 complaints in 2023 to 16 in 2024. Those 16 calls were logged but never confirmed as STR related or investigated, yet they're being used to justify a sweeping licensing and demerit regime for hundreds of responsible operators. Adding to the irony, committee discussions show that if a disturbed neighbor cannot reach the STR owner or the bylaw manager who will be keeping weekday office hours, they're recommended to call for the regular without teeth bylaw or the OPP. This makes no logical sense. Our failing bylaw enforcement will be the fallback for the new and failing STR bylaw. My deepest concern is how this complaint and demerit system will work in practice. The ACW bylaw allows demerits to be issued on complaint or conviction. The only bylaw of dozens that I've reviewed that says that. In committee, the clerk stated that a demerit could be issued even though it has not been confirmed or proven. There is no appeal for demerit points themselves, only for a later suspension. To show what this means in real life, I live in a property with 4 small cottages. If an upset neighbor made a false complaint about both noise and over-occupancy, that could mean 7 demerit points and an automatic 6-month suspension. I would be forced to cancel family vacations and refund deposits without any requirement that the complaint be properly investigated or proven. This risk does not only apply to me, it applies to every responsible STR owner in this township. The bylaw language appears to borrow from municipalities that use the third-party platform Host Compliance that provides a structured 24/7 complaint hotline and a record of how issues are handled. These same definitions have been carried over into ACW's bylaw. I've made repeated requests for how these words and the complaint process works in our context without Host Compliance, and I've received no response. That's because there is no process, except the circular outline logic that I've outlined earlier. If current bylaws are already difficult to enforce, the only way this much more complex regime can be implemented is by lowering the standard of due process and shutting down STRs without proper proof and defense against complaint. It's unfair by design to make an easy trap for 5 houses. Unfortunately, responsible owners will also fall into this trap. Because of these concerns, I've decided to not operate short-term rentals in 2026 and will instead offer longer stays of 30 days or more, reducing our visitors from 24 families per season to 6 or less. I'm not going to risk having to cancel and ruin dozens of precious family vacations due to a malicious complaint. The committee's mandate includes recognizing the positive impact of STRs on the local economy and businesses. Across 14 1- to 3-hour meetings, this topic received less than 5 minutes of mention in passing. I asked 3 of my long-term renters what they spend while they're here, and it ranged from $700 to $2,000 per week on local restaurants, coffee shops, antique and food markets, firewood, and other activities. Conservatively, that means the 24 families who rent our cottages represent at least $16,000 a year in local spending and potentially up to $48,000. It is documented fact that in other communities, STR bylaws have reduced the number of STRs and money flowing into local businesses. I understand that Council wants to respond to complaints and demonstrate action. However, creating a harsh second system that applies only to STRs based on limited and ambiguous evidence shifts the burden of responsibility onto owners and STR owners and risks real harm to our local economy, especially when you've identified a target, justified or not, of only 5 houses. I ask you to vote against this bylaw. If you believe some form of regulation is necessary, please send it back to the committee so they can complete the final item in its terms of reference, preparing a clear enforcement and education plan. The bylaw must ensure responsible owners are protected from malicious complaint, that due process remains intact, key terms are clearly defined, and the true economic and community impacts of STRs are fully considered.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to make any comments at this time? Please.
Anthony Rumchuk, resident of Port Albert. I prepared submissions to council, not realizing that there was a time limitation of 5 minutes. I have pared it down, but I do have copies of those prepared submissions for all council members and would urge you to read them prior to your deliberations. I believe them to be relevant. So there are 9 copies for council members. I've also posted them online to keep non-attending constituents of ACW informed. And should you decide not to read those submissions, I would ask you to simply rely on my letter to council dated November the 24th and my oral presentation as far as I get this morning. Now, I recognize that ACW has authority under the Municipal Act, the Planning Act, the Provincial Policy Statement, and applicable plans to pass bylaws within its jurisdiction. What's critical, though, is that a valid bylaw must also be in the public interest, serve a legitimate purpose, represent good planning, and not be a pretext to avoid statutory requirements or due process. It should be based on detailed investigation, analysis, and evaluation of the issues, must respect the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Canadian Bill of Rights. At the Kingsbridge meeting, I was told that no subject matter experts had been retained and no legal opinions sought on the validity or the structure of the proposed STR bylaw. The only consultation described was with other municipalities, followed by a process of cutting and pasting provisions from their bylaws. Those bylaws are contextual, as Ms. Sneddon just indicated, and internally integrated. Provisions that work in one municipality cannot simply be transplanted into another without building the full framework that makes them fair, coherent, and enforceable. Now, when new regulations are drafted, some core principles should guide that process. Those are equal application of the law, consistency with the Charter and the Bill of Rights, open, transparent, and inclusive engagement at an early stage, clear evidence-based rationale, robust analysis of costs, benefits, and risks, avoidance of unnecessary duplication and administrative burden. They should exercise restraint with conditions no more onerous than required to meet legitimate objectives. And that's a basic tenet of all laws. Measured against these standards, the STR proposal is deeply troubling. There's a glaring lack of evidence and an overwhelming appearance of pretext. I understand that the main impetus for this bylaw was 16 complaints in 2024 involving 5 properties. This has been framed as a 1,000% increase over the 2 complaints registered in 2023 and used to justify these new measures. Yet, key facts remain unknown. Whether the 16 complaints came from 16 different residents or 1 resident or some unknown number in between. Whether the 5 properties actually are STRs or owner-occupied homes. Whether STR-related problems differ in frequency or nature from those at the owner-occupied properties. There is simply no reliable public data to justify a sweeping licensing regime. At the same time, staff and committee members have acknowledged that existing bylaws have not been consistently enforced, that there are only a few problem houses or party houses, and that it's difficult and costly to investigate complaints and secure officer observations. Taken together, these points create the appearance that an extensive new licensing regime is being used to target a very small number of properties and sidestep the evidentiary standards, enforcement costs, and due process that apply to existing noise, nuisance, and property standards bylaws. That is precisely the situation in which a court may see a bylaw as pretextual. The stated purpose is STR regulation, but the practical purpose is to create a lower standard, parallel system for a particular group of property owners. Anecdotally, I myself have made a noise complaint about a owner-occupied residence. When direct appeals to the owner failed, a call to OPP resulted.
Thank you very much, sir, for your comments. To be fair to everyone, we do have a 5-minute limit that has expired, and thank you very much for your comments.
Mr. Mayor, I cannot hear the conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was completed. Is there anyone, and thank you for your comments, is there anyone else that would like to make any comments regarding any agenda item at this time, please?
Hi, my name's Melissa Moore, and I'd like to talk about the short-term rental licensing bylaw, specifically the complaint system, because I'm quite concerned about it. It seems like it's going to lead to results other than what it's supposed to be about. Okay, so at an early meeting of the short-term rental committee, it was discussed that they don't want to have to investigate every complaint. At the February meeting, it was decided the bylaw would be worded so demerits could be issued without a real conviction, just based on a complaint, okay? At the March meeting, the term unresolved complaints was used numerous times. And it appears that term was taken from the bylaws from other municipalities. And the difference was those municipalities were using the term unresolved complaints and resolved complaints because a lot of these other municipalities allow the owners or hosts to resolve the complaint before like there's any sort of conviction or demerits that would happen. Okay, so according to this bylaw and the way they've set it up, there is no investigation in real time while the infraction's happening. There's no opportunity for the host to resolve whatever's going on. So this sets up a dynamic where the complainer has an upper hand and the host is sort of treated like a second-class citizen. Like it shows a bias against the hosts who are often like, you know, running a very legitimate business. They work hard. They value the hospitality they're giving to these, you know, visitors from out of town. And we also know there is a bias out there in some communities in ACW. It also showed up in the survey. I didn't read the entire survey, but at least one stuck out to me that, you know, people make comments that they used to like it better when they saw fewer unfamiliar faces in their neighborhoods. And people are allowed to feel like that. I'm not saying that's not allowed, but it can't play a role in how we regulate short-term rentals because it's not good for prosperity in ACW, the small businesses, which already appear to have a hard time. And one of the businesses in ACW, I was really surprised that she felt like she got a lot of her business from visitors. So it's important that, you know, for ACW's prosperity to have these visitors come in and it's also important for these hosts that are, you know, complying with all the rules that they, you know, try and prevent parties, you know, having lists of rules for their guests, that they could get shut down. So we have the situation, so there's people that are biased already against short-term rentals. There's also people that have situations with neighbors that for some reason they don't, they have issues other than the presence of a short-term rental, like, you know, resentments for where somebody put their shed or something like that. And there's also situations where people can make false accusations or mistaken accusations. We have made mistaken accusations almost against our own guests because at night you can't always tell where the noise is coming from. Once we thought it was coming from our own guests, it turned out it was coming from another cottage. So anybody really can make a mistaken accusation. And if there's nobody coming to investigate while these things are happening in real time, like it's just not going to be fair. So things like, yeah, biases, resentments, mistakes can influence or motivate people to report a problem that's, you know, either exaggerated or mistaken. And so I just don't see how you can avoid doing a proper investigation. Like, you know, if someone comes to their desk 2 days later and says, oh, there was a message here about a complaint, like, you know, like, you know, how do you know if it's true or not? Why would you want to penalize somebody on something that, you know, may or may not have really happened? That, like, there needs to be somebody that will go and investigate. But if you're going to investigate like short-term rental disruptions, like, you may as well just investigate all noise complaints too, because why just, you know, have a different standard for people that own their cottages? Because I'd be really surprised if anybody thinks that short-term rental owners are making more noise than owners. I'd be really surprised.
Thank you very much for your comments. Your time has expired. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would care to make any comments at this time regarding any agenda item that we have today? Please.
Hi, my name is Becky Cooksey. Wanted to speak today about the short-term rental bylaw. Just wanted to thank everybody for giving us all the opportunity to speak about it as well.
Excuse me, could you just say your last name again? We missed it.
Cooksey,
Thank you very much.
C-U-C-K-S-E-Y. I read the bylaw. I do understand that there is a need for it. Obviously, there have been some complaints, but not as many as it's kind of made out to be. As an owner of a short-term rental, we do our very best to make sure that we don't have those rowdy, loud, disruptive people. We do our very best. Like many, many other short-term renters here, we are doing our best to make sure that there are people coming to visit, to participate in communities, you know, go to the beach, relax, have a good time, and support all the other local businesses around as well, right? This bylaw feels like we're being punished and no one is kind of looking at things on an equal basis. So the fact that inspections can happen whenever someone else feels like it. The language is so vague in this bylaw, it really feels like we're being targeted and taken advantage of and put down and treated as second-class people in this county. So, which is very unfortunate because we all enjoy being part of this township. We love the location. We came here for a reason, and we want other people to experience it as well. So, as responsible owners and renters, we're being punished for all of this. Nowhere in the bylaw does it talk about how to resolve these issues before getting to merit points. How are investigations carried out? How are we contacted when there is an issue? I've worked really hard on making a relationship with my neighbors. They'll call me if I have any issues, if they have any questions. You know, it's the whole neighborhood kind of mentality, right? I'll watch your place while you're away. You keep an eye on things for me. If there's an issue, we'll contact each other. There's no language in this bylaw where it talks about, you know, I have this amount of time to resolve any kind of issue before demerit points. Bringing up the investigation piece again, how are they investigating? What if it's my neighbor who owns their home and is there for the weekend and they're having a party and it's not me, but someone else thinks, oh, the Airbnb house, that must be it. How are these things investigated? I want to make sure that it's a fair process. I understand that bylaws are happening and could be needed. That's fine, but we need to make sure it's a fair process. None of the language in here is giving me confidence that this is going to be a fair process. Also, like, we're trying to be responsible hosts. We're trying to be responsible owners. Irresponsible guests can still slip through. I know we've all had our fair share of people we've had to ask to leave. That's fine. It happens. How are guests being consequenced for this? How are they being consequenced for these things? If they're throwing a party at 2 a.m, I can get here as fast as I can. I can kick them out, all of that kind of stuff. How are they being consequenced so that they don't do this again? What's stopping them from renting my house and then going down the street and renting someone else's? That sort of consequence, right? I'm doing my very best to vet people, make sure they've got good references, good reviews, all that kind of stuff. They can still slip through. But again, no opportunity for resolving the issues before points are given to me and I'm fined. Inspections, I understand they need to be safety focused. That's fine. I don't understand why there's a building inspection happening at that point in time as well. So if we're safety focused, let's just keep it around fire safety, things like that nature, right? That were listed in there. Again, big questions about how it's enforced. It doesn't say how investigations are carried out, how this is enforced. I understand that there's, not the staffing to, go out and investigate a complaint at 2 a.m. If there's a party happening, how are we going to know 2 days later when, Monday morning comes around and someone's able to go and take a look? You're not going to see anybody. Everyone's gone. So how is this going to be enforced? And again, the issue of malicious phone calls. If I get someone who doesn't like me or something like that, how are we going to determine the difference between a legitimate complaint and a malicious phone call? I just really feel like this bylaw needs some more time to work out these issues, narrow down this language because it is very broad, very vague. Makes me really worry about these things. We've had the Township has slapped us with a $58,000 bill for the road that they put in front of our house, and now you're taking away our opportunity to try and pay for that bill. I don't have a lot of trust in the township right now. I don't have a lot of faith in the township right now. I know that you really want this bylaw. I understand. But these things need to be worked out. These processes need to be put in place before things are passed. Because this vague language is not fair to anyone. This vague understanding of what the expectations are, how to resolve any issues, how investigations are completed, all of that needs to be done before the law is passed. So all I'm asking is that you put a pause on it. Everyone got the survey, but no one got the opportunity for feedback. I wasn't made aware of any of feedback opportunities, which I would have taken advantage of. So I'm just asking that you pause it and consider some of these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to make any comments regarding any agenda item at this time? Seeing none? Thank you very much for that. We do have two delegations this morning, and the first will be from Angus Macaulay. And I would like to welcome you to come to the podium, Mr. Macaulay, and you are going to address the short-term licensing bylaw. You'll have up to 10 minutes. Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. So on behalf of a group of concerned short-term rental owners and residents in Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh, I will not bother to speak about some of the other concerns that other people brought up, but what is the economic value of the people that visit or stay in our municipality? According to Huron County Tourism, every year over 1 million people visit Huron County. Over $120 million is spent by these visitors, so that's about $120 per person. 25% of these visitors stay or visit Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh. I think one can safely assume that there are millions upon millions of dollars being spent each year by people choosing to visit or stay in our municipality. Much of the money spent by visitors goes directly into the hands of hotel, motel owners, short-term rental owners, campground owners, and other tourism operators that cater directly to the visitors. Visitors also buy art from local artists, meals from restaurants, and gifts and other supplies from stores in or near our community. They purchase tickets so they can attend local concerts and other events. Visitors also spend money on produce from farms and plants from greenhouses. Some of that money goes on to pay for other small businesses in our community that provide services. Septic services, landscaping, construction, maintenance, and even realty businesses depend indirectly on the money spent by visitors. Short-term rental owners and other small businesses and their families benefit and depend on a healthy tourism industry in Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh. Now, you would think that given all the money spent here would make it easy to make a living from tourists. It's not. The store at Point Farms has been closed now for over 2 years. The store and pub in Port Edward has been closed and has been for a year and a half. The Port Edward store has had 5 different owners over the last 25 years. These stores, which once served everyone, are largely dependent on visitors and have been for a long time and will not exist without attracting more customers. The proposed short-term rental bylaw limits the number of people that can stay overnight at any property, and the maximum would be 10 people over the age of 12. Although this may or may not affect smaller units, rental units, it does affect the bigger ones and any short-term rental owner that rents to larger groups, such as for family reunions and whatnot. The fact is, this proposed occupancy limit will result in less people and therefore less money coming into the hands of many ACW residents. This is not beneficial for our economy. Over the years, some residents in ACW have witnessed renters at short-term rentals breaking our noise bylaw and being bothersome in other ways. In fact, as mentioned before, there are a small number of short-term rentals that have been flagged as party houses that have become very problematic for nearby residents. This should not be allowed to occur in our community. Short-term rental owners should be forced to take the required steps to prevent visitors from being unsafe or bothersome to others in the community. Short-term rental owners should be forced to make sure that their guests are always aware of all applicable laws and lay out clear expectations and consequences for unwanted guest behavior in our community. Potential renters that intend to be noisy or break laws should be discouraged in all advertising from ever booking a short-term rental in our community. There needs to be a way for short-term rental owners to stop bad behavior before it becomes a problem. And irresponsible short-term rental owners that break the law should be convicted and fined. The proposed short-term rental bylaw does address some of those points. In closing, I would like to say that there is a way to preserve the quiet cottage culture that most of us want in Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh. We can enjoy the economic prosperity that visitors bring and maintain a peaceful community. Before voting today, we hope that the members of council will consider the financial impacts the proposed law will have on many short-term rental owners and other people residing and working in Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh. And yeah, that's all I had to say, really.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any questions from council as far as clarification on any of the comments? We're good at this point? Perfect, thank you. I would now like to welcome John Hood Tidman to present his comments to us also on the short-term rental licensing bylaw. Welcome.
Hi there, and thank you for welcoming me and allowing me to present. I'm here as an ACW property owner and a citizen, current STR operator and member of the Port Albert Citizens Association, which is how I became aware of the STR Committee's request for public input during the public consultation phase of the before the release of the bylaw. We read through the bylaw, we made some notes and a number of items regarding inconsistencies with the draft, as well as some building code issues. My background, I'm a designer, Ontario Building Code registered, as well as a registered contractor, and a previous owner of a multidisciplinary engineering firm for over 20 years. We were unable to attend the public meeting on the 17th, and so my intent, and it was and it is still to assist and not to obstruct the public process. However, I do request that you give further consideration to this bylaw before you release it. From watching the meetings, my comments that were submitted on September 17th didn't appear to be received in the spirit in which they were intended. The chair announced that there were 50 rhetorical questions and went on not to acknowledge that there may be validity to the points, but to discount the input so that the bylaw didn't have to be adjusted. The reason the questions were rhetorical is that if you read the questions, you have a decision to make on how to act. Either you leave it as it is, you change the wording to clarify the intent, or provide supplementary information to clarify or demonstrate by example. And I'm going to give you an example. You require a site plan and parking management plan. You don't require that it's going to be drawn to scale. In the updated information, you change the size of a parking space to 3 meters by 5.5 meters. That was adjusted from 3 meters by 1.5 meters. That's a 4-meter difference. The surfacing has to be asphalt, gravel, concrete, or another similar surface, but it can't be grass or landscaped. So as many spaces as possible on hard surface is what I read. No discussion of setbacks or required yards or anything like that that are represented in the bylaw. So my question to whoever is here from the STR committee or staff is how many parking spaces are required for an STR licensed for 12 people? And we'll come back to that. So bylaws are intended to provide clear structure for governance when a need exists, because the current laws or bylaws don't address an issue of concern. They're not intended to duplicate or circumvent the existing structure or bylaws. In the case of the existing, what they call repeat offenders, 5 or 6 STRs, that this bylaw is written to address, it appears that the enforcement is failing you. I'm not talking about the people, but the system of enforcement and the dates and the times that you apply it. If your existing bylaws are not enforced and fines levied against existing offenders, then new bylaws are only going to complicate the situation, especially where they duplicate governance. If you want to do the best for the community, take the money you're spending on administrating this bylaw and spend it on full-time enforcement of the existing bylaws. You'll get the best bang for your buck out of it. So from your November 18th agenda, I would like to address a few items that still need consideration. From the October 28th meeting, the committee does not believe that these issues should be incorporated into the STR bylaw. Tiered licensing. To make people go through this whole process and then to potentially in a year revoke the requirement and allow for a reduced set of requirements is unreasonable. This process is considerable. Now is the time for a decision. Not a year from now. There's over 200 SDRs that are going to be affected. You should do it now. And I do believe that there is a tiered licensing that's required. Licensing based on the adequacy of septic systems. They don't think that this is required, but septic system reviews are in progress right now. $75 went on my taxes. We had to have our septic system reviewed, and the septic systems for the licensed STRs may be wholly inadequate to support the use. And since you have this information, you've been collecting it, you need to base the licensing on those those septic system reviews. You have the information. When to apply? The bylaw states that advertising means publicly accessible advertising online and otherwise offering a property or portion thereof for short-term rental regardless of whether a booking has occurred or not. Are you expecting us to remove all of our advertising, our websites, pages with different advertising associations before this bylaw is sorted out and people are licensed? Because there's a violation set out in the bylaw and a fine. What about bookings that have already occurred? How are you going to deal with those? Let's go back to site plans. So I gave you a question. Can you answer how many parking spaces are required? Okay. It doesn't appear in the bylaw. So it says you can use a computer or draw by hand as long as they are legible and all required information is included. It's a very ambiguous statement. Site plans and parking management layout that you've done, it's great. It shows house, head, shed, fire pit, septic, well, parking, number of spots, and surface type, but it's not drawn to scale. So you can't verify whether what's shown on the site plan is appropriate or accurate. Doesn't say what units you need to use. Presumably it's drawn in imperial because the shed was shown as 10 by 12. But in the example, it shows 4 spots at 25 by 20. Now you changed the size of the space to 5.5 by 3, which is 18 by 10. So 4 spots would be 36 by 20. So your example is inaccurate and wrong, and it shows how it could go far wrong. Let's say 12 people, 2 people per car, which means 6 cars. That is 180 square feet of gravel or hard surface. And if you think about that, it's 10 feet wide by 110 feet long. You need to define this better. And it's for that reason that I'm asking you not to issue this in its current state. And what if the site plan contravenes the bylaw? You have a bylaw in place. You have some registration required. You need a sworn declaration from each applicant that the short-term rental is in compliance with the Building Code Act 1992 and any regulation made under it or any revisions made thereto, including the building code. Without being a designer or an engineer, an architect, someone who knows the building code, and the same for the fire code you're asking, it's impossible for people to determine these things. And there are demerit points that are associated to building code violations. So for example, if my stair going into the house is more than 7 7/8 inches, it's a violation. That's 7 demerit points. Let's say the headroom in my stairwell is lower than it should be because it just changed a few years ago. Again, 7 demerit points. I'm out of business for 6 months. So you really need to reconsider these things. They're not reasonable. There's a renter's code of conduct that you're asking people to sign and return, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. The most you can hope people to do is to inform people. And I've got more, but I think you need to reconsider this bylaw before you release it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Do we have any questions of council for clarification purposes only? And I will go first to Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, I have a lot of comments that will be coming up when it's actually on the agenda, but I would like to speak to this gentleman. I am the chair of the Short-Term Rental Committee, who was overwhelmed by your 50 rhetorical questions. So should you wish a better result in the future, I would suggest you pare it down. So, number one.
Asked us to review it.
The number
So
one, I
did
am
that.
not
Excuse me.
speaking.
Councillor Miltenberg has the microphone, please.
I am speaking. So your first question was about parking, and I would say, sir, that you have gone down in the weeds, but the parking space changed because previous comments thought it was too small and it wouldn't fit an oversized truck. So if you were part of all the conversations, you would know that, and that's the kind of question that I don't feel that staff needs to answer 50 times because you're behind in the process. The second thing is you said the licensing was considerable. I did the licensing for Kingsbridge. I am a director of the St. Joseph's Kingsbridge community who owns a short-term rental. So to see if this was too onerous, I did it. The paperwork, and I am a slow typer, and I had to ask 3 other people because I'm actually not on that committee, took me 50 minutes. The drawing took my husband 50 minutes, and he did it entirely to scale and went out with a measuring tape. So I would suggest to you it's not onerous. I would also suggest that the tiered is a conversation that we are holding in a year, or we're recommending it because we had opposite opinions on it. The questions about how we are going to fine people because we bring in a license, that's quite draconian, and I'm quite upset. Not with anybody here, but it's unfortunate that there is such a distrust of council. If you know anything about bylaws, there are some things called legal nonconforming, and things are grandfathered in, and people are given a grace period. So I would suggest that I have never seen that happen, and it will not happen ahead. And as far as the renter's code of conduct, my family frequently uses short-term rentals in this area, and I frequently use them in other areas, and we always have to sign a short-term rental conduct. Always. People, I would suggest that if you don't have one, that's maybe unusual in this area, because my family has never come here and not had to sign one. I would suggest most people already have them. It's a best practice that's included. And that's my comments for now, sir, and I will have more when it comes up under the section. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions of council of any
So
clarification?
ask if any of those were questions directed at me that need to be answered.
No.
Thank you. Okay, and thank you very much for our delegations and those that spoke at open forum. We have nothing under Treasury, Planning, or Building Department this morning. However, we will move to our administration, and the first item under 9.1 is the Short-Term Rental Committee recommendation to council. And so now I will defer to council for any questions or comments that they may have on this, and I'll go first to Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Thank you. I'm Jennifer Miltenberg. I was the chair of that short-term rental committee. And I would like to talk, it's in our report, I'm not sure that everyone's read it. That committee was made up of 4 civilians that were picked by council in the closed session so that we had different points of view. There were 2 people on that committee at the beginning who didn't think it was necessary, and they are okay with what's going on here and contributed to it. So, and I, as the chair, am a directoress one, okay? So we are quite interested in doing it correctly. So I'd like to start with, I'm really sorry for any stress or uncertainty this draft bylaw has put on you. I think there is an imperfect understanding of what's going on, and an education piece has to be in place, okay? Bylaws, by their very definition, do not have exact information on every question that was put here today. That is a different piece of, I'm not sure if I'd call it legislation, but that's not what a bylaw does. I'm going to suggest, before I go further, that we have on our website either a place for these questions, one at a time, or a frequently asked question space where people can find the information, because I understand your concerns. I understand how they are going to be addressed. I don't think this is the space to do it, because that's not what the bylaw is about. That's the details. This is the broad, overreaching thing. The next point I'd like to make is there's been quite a bit of comments about how this was in response to 5 or 6 problem areas. I personally am not doing it for that reason. What those 5 or 6 problem areas showed is that there's an issue, and it started in 2024, and that space has foreign ownership, or Toronto, I guess that's foreign, not really, absentee ownership, let's call it that. And the neighborhood that everyone here is interested in was destroyed, and they had no place to go to, and that's not where we want to lead our civilians. And the areas in Port Albert, which is the name I heard, but I think there's others that you're concerned about, could change in 2 years if you also had property sold and your neighbors didn't live there and didn't care. This is for the protection of all, not for the protection of the ones who are already a problem. Although, Joe, sorry, love you, but this is not about you, okay? At least it's not for me. It's for everyone, and that's why I was interested in it. The value of STRs. The comment was made, we only talked about it for 5 minutes. We only talked about it for 5 minutes because everybody here absolutely agrees and understands the value that STRs bring to our community. We don't need to keep saying it over and over again if everybody agrees. They're wonderful. I use them all the time. So does my family. That's what we're trying to protect. The repeated requests. I already made a reference, or someone else did, about the 50 questions in one request. That wasn't the only letter that had repeated requests. Many questions the same. And going down into the weeds. Why did you find that number for the parking? Why isn't it bigger? Why isn't it smaller? Those are not the kind of questions I'm interested in. Sorry, but I'm not. I'm interested in big picture. Why are we doing it? What are we trying to accomplish? And how can we get there? So this is a letter from October 20th from 2 of the people who spoke today. And they're full of these things, but they say we're exploiting a real crisis, that's a manufactured crisis, which it's not. There is concerns, complaint-driven enforcement by weaponization, and they spoke to me at length at the open house, how they already get multiple complaints, and they're afraid that this will be used against them. And that is certainly not the intent. But on the last page, it says, the real target. In your committee meetings, you've stated that the goal of this program is to catch repeat offenders who refuse to change their behavior after multiple complaints. I would suggest is to stop repeat offenders before they start. But the real outcome, and I believe the underlying intent, is to drastically reduce the number of STRs in our community. If there is the belief that this is to drastically reduce the number of STRs, then there's no meeting of the minds ever, because that is not the intent. From my perspective, from the civilians who sat here every month for a year, and who are STR owners, they want the best for us all, and that's what it's about. I agree with the first speaker, Joe. Is it imperfect? I'm sure it is, but we did our best. Are we going to review it? Yes. Are there going to be circumstances we didn't think of? I imagine so. I'm not as brilliant as I look. But the point is, in the democratic process, we looked at this, we said there is an issue, we need to do something about it. We invited civilians to be part of it, and these are civilians' recommendations. They had the majority. I do not believe this needs to be sent back. I believe it needs to be passed. We will deal with the questions as they come. We will create something I believe should happen so that people can easily get this information, because there's so many people asking the same questions and they've heard it all from the same person, and it's an imperfect interpretation. And I would like to send this, and I would like to make a motion to do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there any other comments from any other members of council at this time? And I will go first to Deputy Mayor Van Stoneman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of them, and I wasn't on the committee, and I appreciate the committee's work. Don't get me wrong, because any committee of council is sanctioned by council, and we appreciate their input and amount of time they put into it. But one of the main questions that I've been asked is who evaluates the complaint, and to make sure that it's fair? Because, you know, in the bylaw it says that if they get so many complaints and they get so many ticks against them, that they can be shut down. So who does that? Who evaluates that and looks at it, and to make sure that it is a legitimate complaint? It's just not some neighbor that's mad at them because their dog messed on their lawn or something, and they threw a complaint in. So that's, I think if we address that, it'll help a lot of minds, because people are afraid that they're going to be chastised unfairly. So I'm looking for that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll defer. CAO, do you have any comment on that, please?
I'm trying to look at the bylaw itself for that specific area. The clerk's not here today, and she's well versed on this more than I am. But I would assume, and I'm only assuming, that it'd be between the bylaw enforcement officer and the clerk.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Well, yeah, I guess, but you know, I'm hoping that there is a really good place for this to come back to, so that it is treated fairly, and we look at it and not just say, oh, okay, well, we got a complaint, tick, they lose 2 or 3 points. Which, no, I don't have that. Okay.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Councillor Snowblin, please.
Yes, I'll address Deputy Mayor's comment or question, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody on the committee. It was my understanding that we have a bylaw officer that, you know, is currently very good and very good at disseminating frivolous or malicious complaints, and well versed in all of that. Between the bylaw officer and the clerk, it was determined, if my memory serves me correctly, that that would be the basis for determining, you know, any kind of going forward demerit point, etc.
Yeah, that just, thank you very much for that, Councillor Snowblin. That reaffirms our CAO's comments. Any further questions or comments? And I'll go first now. Oh, please continue, Councillor Snowblin.
No, I was just going to go on with my comments. Go ahead and ask whoever you were going to.
No, please go ahead with your comments, and then I'll go to Councillor Hickey after that.
Well, quite lengthy. I have several comments. First of all, I'd like to publicly thank the Short-Term Rental Committee for meeting every month for a year. It was a commitment to be there, and I think that we chose well for the members from the township, and I think we had very good discussion at every meeting, and I believe in my mind that we covered all of the items and questions that people kindly sent in. I would also note that it was interesting that, as my colleague Jennifer said, that 2 members are short-term rental owners, and it's interesting to note that they committed to this, even though I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think they were really in favor of it when they came into the committee meetings a year ago. But that was just my opinion. I wouldn't want to speak for that. But it was interesting to see how they were opened up to some of the problems that were happening in short-term rentals. They didn't have problems. They've never had problems. And it was interesting to see how they evolved to recognize and acknowledge that there are problems. It's been said a couple of times that it's just 5 houses, 5 party houses that have caused all this. I don't agree with that statement. I have heard from lots of people that have not called in to complain, and there's a reason why they don't call in with their complaints. And most of it is they're afraid. Another point is they don't want to cause trouble. Another point is they don't think anything's going to happen, so why should I call in? But they complain to counselors. They don't always just call in and make the complaint. So, and I would suggest to Councillor Miltenberg, this didn't start in 2024. I would suggest this started in about late 2021, 2022. This has been going on for a few years. And council has been handcuffed by how we can respond and correct any of the complaints that come in. And the reason that we're handcuffed is because we have no bylaw that addresses it. So that was the purpose of collecting data first. I think that would have been in 2024 when we first started to collect data, 2023. So we had to have data in order to go forward with putting a committee together. And then we spent a year as a committee reviewing, going through all kinds of angles, looking at other bylaws from other municipalities, looking at the pros and cons to every piece of the draft bylaw. I think it was a very fulsome discussion. Someone mentioned about the regulations and legalities of the regulations, and that there was no opinion on the legalities of it. I would speak to that briefly, saying that why would you get a legal opinion on something until you have a final draft, which I believe the clerk has done. For every suggestion that you put in as you go along for a year, it doesn't make sense to have a legal opinion on it. It's best to have the legal opinion on it when it's just prior, to being set in ink. That is the time to have legal opinions on things. There was also some comments about bias that one of the open forum people spoke to, and that the speaker mentioned that people don't want to see new people in our municipality. I don't think that there's really anything that you can put on paper to say that. I think that's a really weak argument for this draft bylaw to go forward. And it was also mentioned that it was a mode of penalizing people that have short-term rentals. And if people were watching this short-term rental committee meet every month for a year, they would have noticed right from the very beginning, this was not about penalizing. This whole exercise was done in the spirit of educating people. And that was said over and over again. I believe at every meeting for a year, it was said, it's not to penalize people. It's meant to educate people. And that's our goal, to educate people. But we do have to have something in place to protect people that are neighbors to what some people refer to as party houses. That's the only way to get around it. And before it ever gets to a penalized point, there's an educational component. And I believe that that was said so many times. It's hard to believe that people missed that. There was something also mentioned about real time, being able to address these in other ways, other bylaws, either through noise bylaws, property standard bylaws, fireworks bylaws. And I'll argue the point that this draft bylaw was a result of the fact that those things weren't working. They haven't been working for 3, sometimes up to 4 years. They haven't been working. How do you fix something when it's not working? Well, in our case, we put a draft bylaw about short-term rentals. That was our solution to it. I don't believe there was another solution. You can't keep asking the OPP and the bylaw officer and keep paying those people to come out with no consequences, no resolutions, nothing that makes the situation better. And people come wise to that. Renters from out of town, absentee landlords, they get wise to that. And then it gets out of hand. And that's kind of where we got to. It got out of hand. And I'll reiterate my point that I've made several times at the short-term rental committees, is that when we pay for OPP, every taxpayer in ACW pays for the OPP. So on my farm property, why am I paying for OPP to come out and problem solve for an absentee landlord? And I'm paying for that, you're paying for that. We're all paying for that. Is that fair? I'll ask that question. Is that fair? In my mind, I think if there's a problem in a particular area with a particular group of people, then it should be them that are responsible for the costs of that. And that goes back to other parts in our township policies and bylaws. And I referenced like street lighting. The people that have street lighting in Dungannon or Saltford, they pay for that. My farm taxes don't pay for that. It's a pay-as-you-play. And with short-term rentals, I've mentioned this before at the meetings, it should be a pay-as-you-play. That seems to me, in my mind, to be fair. And let's talk about economic development for a moment, because that was brought up a few times, about how much money our short-term renters come in and pay in our township. It was suggested that 25% of the 1 million visitors that come into Huron County, spend money and so on. And I have nothing to prove on that. And I appreciate that people like to come in and spend money. Why wouldn't we all like that? We all love that. But anecdotally, I will suggest that I was the owner of a business at one time in a part of a municipality that had a lot of, it was on the river, Thames River. It had a lot of boat dockages. We had a lot of folks that came in, doubled and tripled side by side their boats. Lots of what we thought was economic development. And the municipality at the time was running into problems. And the problems that they were running into were a lot of times with the boaters, the parties on the boaters, that was affecting businesses and residents in the area. And when it came down to it, they were saying, people were saying, they bring in so much money. You know what? Those boaters, they brought in their own food, they brought in their own booze, they were happy to party on their own boats. I'm not saying they didn't spend money in our stores, but did it affect me economically? No, it didn't. And it didn't for most of the people that were my neighbors, business neighbors. It didn't affect their economic bottom line either. Do we appreciate them being there? Sure we do. We love having them come in. If they spend money, that's a bonus. And it's not that we didn't want to see them coming in, but there was a problem, and the problem had to be addressed. Not a lot of people were happy about it, but it did solve the problem. So as far as the financial impact of short-term renters coming in, I think it is probably somewhat, it can be argued that it would be somewhat negligible. I would suggest that a lot of times they bring in a lot of their own things. Maybe they buy firewood and a few groceries, and maybe they go to concerts, maybe they go to plays and so on. I don't know that that can be determined, but I don't think that we can base, not having this bylaw go forward on a premise or a pretext of economic development. I don't think that that's a fair argument. There's no data to support that. I'll also suggest that it was said that the mandate of this committee was just to move it forward to council. I would argue too that that wasn't the case. There was a problem way before the committee was struck, and council was handcuffed at that, and I've mentioned that before. And that it was also just suggested, as Councillor Miltenberg mentioned earlier, that recommendations that were sent in were not addressed or were not considered. As it was said before, they were addressed, they were considered. As she mentioned, a lot of times we were all in full agreement. So did we have a 20-minute discussion on something we were in full agreement of? No, it wasn't necessary. I think we ran very efficient meetings. To sum up my comments, and without, trying to take up too much of council's time and so on, I would suggest that this is a starting point, and it's a good starting point for council and for the municipality. I believe it will help with making things safer for renters coming in. It will hold accountability to absentee landlords have the short-term rentals. And I believe that it will not be as onerous as a lot of people think it might be. And I think it will be a good thing, if I can quote Martha Stewart, it will be a good thing for our municipality. So I will be voting in favor of it. I've been working hard at this for 2 to 3, 4 years now, and I feel in my heart of hearts that this is the right move to make. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Snoblin. Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you. First, I'm going to comment on a comment by Councillor Snoblin on the cost of the OPP. I appreciate you bringing that up. That was a comment I was going to make. How is it fair for Evan Hickey, the taxpayer, to pay for an OPP to attend a problem house 3-4 times a weekend, a month, like whatever it is? It should be that property that pays for that issue, not myself as the taxpayer. So I appreciate you bringing that up. I was a short-term rental committee member. I agree with rules coming forward for short-term rentals. I agree with the comments made in open forum. Is it perfect? No. Is it set in stone? No. Things can be changed. But with the concerns I'm hearing today, I'm not sure a year is acceptable for the education part. I'm starting to wonder, should we pause and just educate and go through the education part and maybe solve 80 or 90% of these issues before it comes in, instead of a long 12 months of educating people through it individually or individual issue by issue. So I support this, just not today. I would like an education, like a one-time thing. I don't know how it goes forward, to try and solve some of these issues we're hearing today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Hickey. I would like to go back to Councillor Snoblin, and then I'll go to Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to respond to Councillor Hickey. I agree that there needs to be education, but I feel that there's been education already for a year. The short-term rental committee meetings were open to the public. Councillors were easily accessible for anyone that might have viewed the short-term rental committee meetings online to reach out and clarify or add any comments. There was a public consultation. There were surveys taken, and surveys were reviewed and data collected from them and presented to the short-term rental committee. I agree that there needs to be education, but I also feel that the education piece has already started a year ago or better, when the short-term rental committee was first organized. I think there will be further education in the next year. We have put it to the committee, and I believe it was a motion that it will be reviewed. We could review it earlier than a year, but I don't think that that would be effective. I think we need to have the full year in order to get a good sense of, you know, what needs to be tweaked in any way, if anything needs to be tweaked. So yes, I do agree with you. Education is important, but I do believe the education has already started and will continue.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Okay, yes and yes. The education piece, and I may be wrong, Evan, but I think this was the meeting you missed. It was talked about how there had to be an education piece. Kelly here has given us some really nice handouts that were attached somewhere. We asked how that was going to happen. So, and Anita, this is a yes and to yours. The committee made the recommendation that we review it in a year, and the committee made the recommendation that we have an education piece, but the council makes that decision. Committee can't decide to do that. So the committee has made the recommendation to council that we pass the bylaw. Now, Florence is not here, but Kelly is, and I don't mean to throw you under the bus, Kelly, but my memory from that meeting is when I asked Florence, what about the education piece? She said the process is we pass the bylaw. Staff comes back with a report on what the education piece will look like. And that will take place before it's implemented. But before there's an education piece about a bylaw, there actually has to be a bylaw, if that makes sense. That is what Florence said, but it's up to this council to give, is my understanding from the meeting, because all these recommendations came from the committee, but the committee cannot make the decision to do this. This council needs to make the decision. It needs to also make the decision that we will review it in a year, because that is outside the scope of the mandate that was originally set. And then staff would bring back how we implement it after we have passed it. That's my understanding, and I'm happy to be corrected or added to or edited or whatever.
Thank you very much. CAO, please.
So in your report that's ahead of you today, under 9.1, it says the committee developed education portion is provided for council. It's in your package today. These documents will serve as tools, okay, for the operators and the owners and the neighbors, and will be used in future implementation worked by staff once the bylaw is adopted. So the attachments are in your package today.
Correct. That is right. Yeah, Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, so to add to that education piece, we had all sorts of suggestions for Kelly's, like, do we need an open house? Do we need to do this? And the suggestion was that that was operational, and that Kelly had lots of great ideas, as did Florence, and they would be presented to us as how, like, the information is there, but how they were going to make sure it was widely spread. For example, I know that the head of the Ashfield-Colborne Lakeshore Association, which is, I don't know how many lakeshore associations, 20 or something, they attended every virtual meeting. They attended it virtually. So I know that that portion was well education, but there are some that are not right on the lakeshore. For example, Kingsbridge, of which I'm the director, only knows about it because I was the chair of the meeting. Like, we didn't get stuff, but we're going to try to make sure everybody gets it. But that is an operational thing that staff will show us, and then we can add suggestions. That's how it was presented to me at the last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from council on this? Councillor Blake, please.
Yeah, thank you. Originally, I was very against licensing and regulations for the short-term rentals. I have come around to it quite a bit. I see that there is a need to address specifically these problem areas, but overall with short-term rentals. However, I can't support the bylaw as it sits today. There's parts of that bylaw, and I'll just read one just as a quick example. Section 16.1, the manager or an officer may at any reasonable time inspect any premises for which an application for a short-term rental license has been submitted. That's something I can't support whatsoever. At any reasonable time to inspect, that's way too open-ended for me. It goes on to say further that any goods, equipment, books, records, or documents used by the owner or tenant can be inspected. This I can't support whatsoever. Like I said, I have come around to see the need for some type of licensing and regulation program. However, I can't support this one today as it is in front of me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? I'll go to Councillor Snoblin first, and then Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you very much. Councillor Blake, I did receive a comment from a person in the community that mentioned just that. And I said to that person I would bring it up at this meeting. It is my recollection, and anybody on the committee or the CAO, please correct me if I'm wrong, this is in there, the statement is in there, but there's a lot of things that have to happen before it ever gets to this. And starting with a bylaw officer who has the ability to assess a situation as to whether or not it needs any further action, or if there's a demerit point that needs to be made, or if it's just a warning, that sort of thing. And there's lots of bylaws and provincial laws, municipal laws that are like that. They have to have that wording in there, but there's a lot that has to happen before it ever gets there. And I maybe ask the CAO to clarify that for me if I've understood that correctly.
Okay, thanks for the question. CAO, please.
No, it says the manager or the officer may at any reasonable time inspect, and then it lists 5 different things. But yeah, I don't think the intent of this is to be heavy-handed and come in and they'll work with the short-term rental operators. So I think, Anita, what you said is correct.
I think the key word there is reasonable, right? And it's not like there's a SWAT team that's going to come in and knock down somebody's door to look at their record players, or their CDs. I think that people are thinking maybe that is the overreach that the committee is looking for, and it was never discussed at the committee level that I can recall that this was the type of action that we were looking to take. As I said, I think that the key word here is reasonable, and that's where the bylaw officer comes in. That's where staff at ACW comes in, that it has to be reasonable. Can we legislate reasonable? No, but we can look at past circumstances, past experiences, and if we didn't feel that our bylaw officer was doing a good job, that bylaw officer wouldn't still be our bylaw officer. And the same goes for any staff member. So going on past experiences, they seem to come across as reasonable and logical. And that's what I'm basing this part of the bylaw on. But I do appreciate your comments, Councillor Blake, and I'm glad that you brought them up.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Snoblin. Deputy Mayor Vanstone, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just like for the CAO, that's who I'll put this on, to confirm the fact that any bylaw can be changed. If we find it's not working, the council can change it. And if there's a problem with it, then we have to update it and make it work. So I think that's where this is in the stage right now, is that if and when this is brought in, then it will work its way through, and a diligent council will fix the problems and make it work right. So I just like the people to know that, and if I'm right, the CEO can say yes or no.
Okay, thank you for that. CEO, please.
No, the intention is to review it in a year, but if for some reason things aren't working and staff realize that, we would bring that back. Or if there's something that the members of council are hearing that it's not working, they can ask staff to bring it back and take a look at it and make changes. The bylaw's not perfect, and after a year, we'll know what the bugs are in it.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a motion to, if is that appropriate here or not?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet, just hold that. Councillor Forster, please.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. I have two issues with this. So our family next summer, we're renting a cottage it's out near Peterborough. And just with our family own, we're almost maxing out that 10. So, like, if we had to rent 2, it wouldn't happen. Whether that number can be changed, I get why you're maxing it out, but we're somebody had 2 days dealing with this in the office. I don't agree with that either, but I guess when it happens, the OPP will be called. Is that correct? And they deal with it, or I think the bylaw officer should be going out when the events happen. But I know people don't want to work at nights. But that's the only 2 problems I have with it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, two things, and I forgot your first question. Oh, yeah, the 10 was based on what we felt was septic driven. So my family and I have gone, Wayne, and we've rented 2 cottages because we had too many people. Sorry about that. It's based on the average septic because Kingsbridge actually is bigger, but 10 is the limit. The second one question, I had an answer, but I can't remember it. What was your question?
Please use your microphone so everyone can.
Bylaw officer. We did have that discussion at our meetings, and we felt that, you know, people are worried about people coming up 2 days later and saying they did this. The reality is, I don't know anybody who doesn't have a smartphone except my son Patrick, who deliberately paid more for a flip phone, okay? Most people have a smartphone that you just record it and it's time-stamped. You know, like the bylaw officer can have the evidence and you can send it. And I also would suggest that if they don't come up for 2 days, they weren't very bothered about it. And that to me would be, really, you were that bothered? But that's up to the bylaw officer. But there's easy ways to prove it with the technology that most people have. And you see it all the time. And so we did have that conversation.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Snowblum, please.
Yes, I'll just touch a little bit on some of Councillor Forrester's comment about the occupancy. We spent a great deal of time talking about occupancy and how it should be based. Should it be based on number of bedrooms or should it be based on septic? And one of the delegation people mentioned something about it should be based on septic. And I think if we had all of our short-term rentals in a nice little neat subdivision with every lot size the same and every septic piece the same and everything sort of uniform, it would be really easy to base that on a septic. But one of the committee members mentioned that different places have different kinds of septic. So to base occupancy on something like septic that is so variable from place to place, as is parking, is so variable from place to place. Not everybody's parking area is the same. It's impossible to make a uniform part of the bylaw, regulation of the bylaw on that. So we had to go back and look at bedrooms, and that's how the occupancy was based. 2 people to a bedroom plus 2. And that's where it came up with that formula. So I just thought I should clarify that because it did come up in the delegations. And I think it's just something to reiterate again that it was based on something logical.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Miltenberg, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for that, Anita, because I also had a note in all my notes to mention about that. So when I said it was based on septic, it actually was based on bedrooms, but we had to go with the assumption that most people had the septic for the bedrooms because although ACW is inspecting septics, we're not all the way done. We don't have data on everybody's septic. That doesn't mean that in the future, some future committee, which I will not be a part of, will say, you know, instead of bedrooms, we should be looking at septic because now we have data on septic. But at the time, we thought the only thing we can do, because we don't know what kind of septic systems they have, we don't know if they're good or not, we're just going to go by bedrooms with the assumption that they have adequate septic. So for like Kingsbridge has 5 bedrooms, but the occupancy is 10 because that's what it is. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Snowblum, please.
Yes, thank you. And the whole topic of septic brings up something else that I'd like to make a remark on. Septic was brought up several times in the committee meetings, and it was discussed about how is it fair. And we talked about fairness before, that this bylaw, some people are suggesting it's not fair. It's penalizing and demoralizing. What is penalizing when you have, I guess if you have somebody next to you that has a septic issue because they have too many occupants in a rented house next door to you, how is that fair? And how is it fair to the rest of the taxpayers if that septic starts leaking and leaching out? We have an obligation as council to protect the environment and protect the land that we live on. And One of those is septic. And if we have too many people in a place and it's overloading septic time and time again over the course of many, many years, it would be a shame that people would point to this council to say that we didn't do anything to help with that. And we do have septic inspections, and we're moving in the right direction for that. But when we have short-term rentals that are not regulated, and people can put, renters, absentee landlords can put as many people into a place as possible, in some cases into a bunkie that was zoned as a shed, and they're possibly putting some kind of septic into the ground from that. We have an obligation to protect the land and the neighbors and people that are affected by that.
Okay, thank you very much for those comments. Any other comments from council? I did refrain for a purpose, and at the end now I will make some comments. And the first is I would like to thank the committee very, very much. Members of the public made a very, very positive contribution to this, and we wanted it to be inclusive with the public and also to the council members, and under Councillor Miltenberg chairing the committee. Thank you very much to all the committee members. We worked on this for over a year, and a lot of thoughtful consideration for everything that we've discussed, not only today, however, many other topics. Second comment, in the absence of a bylaw, enforcement's not possible. That's what we're faced with. And we felt as a committee that the bylaw was necessary for enforcement, and that's why it is being brought forward to council today. So I am going to ask for a show of hands if council is in support of consideration of this bylaw in section 18.
I would suggest we just adopt the bylaw now. So let's jump to 18.1 and let's just deal with it.
Okay. Consideration of that was supported by council, so we will move on to section 18, and that is the bylaw. I'm looking at 18.1 for the short-term rental bylaw, and I will entertain a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Snoblin moves, Councillor Forrester seconds, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 68-2025, being a bylaw license, regulate and govern the operation of short-term rentals in the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh, and that it now be read severally, a first, second, and third time, and finally passed the second day of December 2025. All in favor of the motion is read. Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. We will now move on to item number 9.2, and that is the Integrity Commissioner. We've read the report, and the intent of this report is that if any councillor makes contact with the Integrity Commissioner, just make the CAO aware of it. That's all. Nothing about content or anything else, just so that the CAO and our Treasury Department is aware that there will be a financial request for this. That's the purpose of that. So, any questions or comments of council? And I'm going to ask for a show of hands if council is in support of this. Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. 9.3 is the Employee Appreciation and Engagement Committee. The year-end update is for information purposes. It appears to be working very well, and we want to engage our staff and show our appreciation to them. Do we have any questions or comments on this? Seeing none. 9.4 is the speed reduction signage at Blythe Road and 21. This was requested to come forward to a future meeting, and I will open it up. Councillor Snoblin, would you like to start up the conversation on this, please?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. It was my intention to bring attention. It was my intention to bring attention to the fact that Blythe Road, County Road 25, has what I determine in my mind to be a bit of a problem with the speed on that as it approaches Highway 21. And I was grateful that the county decided to reduce the speed limit from 90 down to 70 at the 1.1 kilometer mark east of Highway 21. I think it will be effective. However, I think it could be more effective. And I'll give an example. At the last council meeting, when I left council meeting, there was somebody from our council table that was driving ahead of me, and it was a subject that was discussed not an hour before, and the person from the council table ahead of me was going way over 70 as they approached the intersection at 21. Now, if somebody that had just discussed it still doesn't seem to realize that there's a speed reduction, how is it possible that everybody that rides that road is going to see this speed reduction as well? And I know that those signs, and probably Councillor Forrester being on the CHIP committee can testify to this, that those speed limit signs that, you know, say you're slow down or something, they record your speed as you're approaching. I think that they've been very effective. And I know that there's one right at Carlow, not too far from the township office. And I would appeal to the council to appeal to county council to put a sign up to that effect, where that speed reduction happens at the 70-kilometer mark, at the 1.1 kilometer east of Highway 21. I think that it's a dangerous intersection. I think everybody around the council table recognizes that that's a dangerous intersection. It's well traveled, and I would go so far as to say that there's a lot of people that travel that part of the roadway that have seen the 90, and they do it so often they haven't even noticed that it's down to 70 kilometers an hour now. There's no signage indicating that there's a speed reduction. And I think we're all probably guilty of not seeing something because we see it so many times. We don't need to look at the speed limit anymore because we've seen it so many times over the years. And that's not a fault, that's just human nature. So I would kindly ask council to support my request for council to appeal to the county about putting some kind of another warning signal about a speed reduction at that intersection.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, I have a different request, Anita. I'm just going to start you with a little story. We used to own the farm right across from Brookside, just past Brookside, and drove there all the time, never gave one thought about the speed because it was 90 posted, and then sold it to my son. He got children, they started going to school, everybody's going by 90 kilometers an hour. So he appealed to me. Well, actually, they started with the county and nothing happened, but regardless, eventually, after some diligence and persistence, that speed limit was changed 2 years ago. It dropped from 70, now starts at 70, and then it drops to 50, which is what it should do. And do you know who constantly speeds? Me. Because I always just drove there, and I drive right by the 70, and then I see the 50, and I'm not to the school yet, people, and I hammer on my brakes because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right, the speed limit changed. It's been happening for over a year now, and in my defense, I drove it too fast for a lot of years. So I'm not sure that the sign will be effective long term. I think what should happen is it should go down to 50, or a second sign when you're getting closer to that intersection. So when you miss the first one, you go to 50, because really you have that business there. You shouldn't be going 70 past people parking on the shoulder, which they do anyway. I agree it's a problem. I think the solution is a further reduction further down, based on my own behavior, which may not be everybody else's. But I would support either motion.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? Councillor Blake, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to support Ms. Snowblin's comments on doing another signage just to advertise that it is a reduced speed and just make people more aware. How the county would like to go about it, I'm not sure, but I would support going ahead with that.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm going to, Councillor Snowblin and then Deputy Mayor, please.
Yes, thanks very much. I would also suggest too that when I first brought this up, I can't remember how many months ago, to appeal to council to bring this to the county's attention, I mentioned about the rumble strips, how they have worn down, and I know that that's an alternative method to introduce people to a reduced speed limit. But I believe there's a lot of people that think rumble strips are a pain, especially the neighbors that have to listen to it all the time. So I don't think if the county looks at this and says, well, there's rumble strips, I guess I would want to argue that those rumble strips have worn down a lot, and I don't think that there would be a lot of neighbors that would be in favor of that, that approach. So just to reiterate my comment about, I think it should be some kind of a flashing sign that indicates that you're traveling too fast as you approach a reduced speed limit.
Okay, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that's exactly what I think. If we're going to ask the county, we should ask for one of those flashing signs that because it brings your attention, and even if it's only there for 6 months or so, they move them around. So I think we should ask for a flashing sign, and so be it.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to ask Councillor Forster, with your involvement with the CHIP committee, would that be called an electronic speed sign display, or what would your comment be from your perspective?
That would be, so you're talking about the same sign that's at Carlo, correct, Councillor Zimmer? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's whatever you just said. Thank you.
Okay. So would would it be appropriate for a motion on this?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate because I'm hearing mixed messages, so I think it'd be clear if someone moved and seconded a motion, then we can have Kelly prepare it and read it and make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I agree to that. So I will entertain a motion for someone that feels that they have the appropriate wording for what we want to accomplish. Councillor Snoblin, please.
I haven't written anything down, but I'll just go off the top of my head, and I'll try to speak slowly so that Kelly can capture what I'm about to say. So I would like to make the motion that the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh appeal to Huron County Transportation Department to introduce a speed reduction sign at the intersection of Highway 21 and County Road 25 prior to the 70 km/h sign that was recently installed.
Can you repeat that last part again? After County Road 25?
Yeah, I'm kind of rethinking how I said that, and I haven't got anything written down, but Wayne, maybe you can help me. I think the sign, the flashing sign, is that after the speed limit reduction? Is that when that happens? Or is it prior to the speed limit sign?
Deputy Mayor, do you have a comment?
Yeah, it should be on the 70 sign.
Okay.
That's what they do in other places. So
Okay.
wherever the 70 sign is, they should have that posted on there. And that's thing in that, I would add that we should put flashing sign. And that's the only thing I've got to say. Thank you.
Yeah.
Was your intent, and I'm asking Councillor Snoblin, for an electronic speed sign display?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we're just going to give our clerk a moment.
Electronic speed sign or a flashing sign? I think you need to clarify. Like a speed sign is the ones that you see going into Dungannon where they show 70, 80, you're going too fast, slow down. Or you just want a flashing light.
No, the signage, is that your flashing sign with the speed on it? That's your intent, Councillor Snoblin?
Yes. Whatever the one at Carlo is.
Yep, I think we all understand the intent.
Yeah.
And I'll defer to our deputy clerk when she is ready to read the motion, and then I'll ask for a second.
Kelly, just change the word from transportation to county highways. Here in county highways is good enough.
Okay, deputy clerk, please.
That the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh appeal to Huron County Highways to introduce an electronic speed sign at the intersection of Highway 21 and County Road 25.
Is that correct, Councillor Snoblin, or should we
It
be
is,
more
but I think in more specific, and again, I don't have it written down, but in conjunction with the reduced speed limit sign that was recently installed.
Yes, so your intent is the sign to the east of Highway 21 at the sign that would indicate the speed limit of 70 kilometers.
Correct.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, please.
That the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh appeal to Huron County Highways to introduce an electronic speed sign at the intersection of Highway 21 and County Road 25 in conjunction with the recent installed 70-kilometer-per-hour sign.
I think that's captured perfectly, and I will so move.
Do we have a seconder for this? The speed limit? Yes.
I can't hear the conversation.
Would you please repeat your comments?
Yeah, sorry, I thought it was a 75-mile-an-hour sign, but I was corrected, and it is a 70. Thank you.
Yeah.
70 clicks, yes. Do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Blake seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion is read. And that is carried. Thank you very much. And 9.5 is a municipal government introduction for elementary school students. And again, Councillor Snoblin, would you like to lead this discussion?
Yes, I've brought this up in the past, and I'll try one more time because we do have an election year in 2026, and it seems appropriate that we bring this up in December of 2025 ahead of that time period. And I think it's a great opportunity to introduce our elementary school students to the process of local government. I think it's been said before, whenever you want to get the parents involved into something at a school or at a church or a facility, or like Cub Scouts or anything, get the kids involved, and that brings the parents in too. And at our strategic planning meetings, we talked about communication and trying to be more open and transparent as a council and at our meetings and so on. And I think we're doing a great job at it. And just because we're doing a great job at it doesn't mean to say that we can't do something better. And it'd be my opinion to, introduce something very simple, very, very uncomplicated, to bring in a class that might be studying politics, government, how our democracy works, not just within the municipality, but in the province of Ontario, in the country of Canada that we live in. And given all the politics that seems to come forward on all kinds of social media, simply because of the way the world is in terms of politics and the disruption that it's caused over the last year, since some countries have had new leaders elected, I think it is a huge topic. It seems to come up over and over again. And introducing our young people to a way to contribute, a way to have an understanding of how government works, how decisions are made, is a great opportunity. And I think that this council would be remiss in letting that opportunity slide, particularly when it is an election year, and particularly when the curriculum does indicate that there is some study for elementary students on government and how democracy works. My vision for this would be, as I said, something very simple and uncomplicated, by bringing in whatever class or curriculum that is studying government and democracy and how it works would come in, and we'd have a student that would shadow us. Maybe the whole classroom would be able to come in and watch a council meeting. And I would suggest that staff would be able to have some leniency on what kind of items would come up for discussion at a council meeting. It might be a council meeting where we have, usually very light agendas, not things that, involve zoning and minor variances and things like that, but something very similar, but have an idea of how we make decisions. The class would be able to sit through a council meeting. Each counselor might have a student that sits with them and observes and watches how we do our business at the council table. And that would include maybe having a mayor and a deputy mayor for the day. And I think it would be an opportunity to publicize and communicate to our residents that we're interested in our young people. We're interested in teaching them how democracy and government works and getting them involved in it. And I'll also, just a brief story. When I was in grade 5, we had, it was an election year, and the 3 major party members that were representing the area that I lived in at the time came in and, talked about their particular party. And then the classroom was divided up. The teacher divided us up into those parties that those leaders represented. And the leader of the Conservative Party at the time was Darcy McHugh, who was very well known in the legislature. And he said to the class that, if the Conservatives win, I will be taking your whole class to Queen's Park. Well, the Conservatives did win, and he made good on his promise, and he took our whole class to Queen's Park. Now, why am I saying that story? That story goes back to when I was like 10. That's over 50 years ago. And why do I still remember that story? Because it had an impact on me. And that's what I'd like to do, is have an impact on our young people. And that impact led me into being involved in politics. And I'm proud to say that this is 35 years I've been into politics, at the school board level and at the municipal level. We have the opportunity to frame and support and mold young people into a career path that may lead them into politics. And I think that would be such an honor to be a part of that at this table. Will Darcy McHugh ever know that he had an impact on me like he did? Probably not. He passed away shortly, but not that long ago. But he did have an impact, and I would like to think that our council would have an impact on somebody at some point down the road. That's my argument for going forward with this, Mr. Mayor, and I would hope that council would support this. And how to do it, that would be up to staff.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm just going to ask a question before I go to Councillor Miltenberg. Do we know what the curriculum encompasses as far as civics is concerned in the elementary schools?
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I would say that that's the how. That would be up to staff to reach out to superintendents or principals to find out where that occurs.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
At the past election, it was the grade 5-6 level. That was 4 years ago. I don't know what it is now. Anita, I agree with everything you say. And I think that it will take significant staff time to achieve just the response rate. They would have to go higher than the local school, I would think. We'd have to bus them. And I'm not opposed to any of it. I'm just recognizing the difficulty to actual staff to carry out that. It's not easy engaging with the local schools, and particularly when it becomes the curriculum item. I would be happy to support this and have a staff report come back. But I mean, there's a lot of unknowns in that, although I support it. I'm just not sure the how is as manageable as it sounds.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Snowden, did you have a comment you'd care to share?
Yes, I'll comment on that. With all due respect, I hope you're not getting into the weeds on that, Councillor Miltenberg, because that was, as I said in my beginning remarks, I would like to see this be as uncomplicated and as simple as possible. And a staff report to reach out to the one school that's in our municipality is a great way to start. And I would suggest that staff in schools plan field trips on a regular basis. That's not their only job, but they've done it often enough that they know the elements that are required to make a field trip work. And for us to get into the weeds of how that should work, that's not our purpose. That shouldn't be our purpose. That shouldn't be our reason to deny this. But a staff report is a good place to start, and possibly have one of our staff reach out to the one school that's in our municipality to see if this is a possibility, if we can make it happen. And as far as the busing cost, I would suggest that we could introduce that at budget time. I think it would be a nominal cost, and I think it has the potential of having a great effect.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I agree with what you say, and despite the fact there's only one school in our area, there is a Catholic school board, and those children also are in our area. So I would suggest we would also need to reach out to St. Mary's and possibly St. Joe's Clinton. Whether they respond or not is up to them, but if we're talking about benefiting the students and not the school, then you have to look at all the students. That would be my addition to what you said.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Snoblin, a follow-up?
Yes, to respond to that, and I've mentioned this a number of times already, to keep it uncomplicated, to start small. And the only way we can start small was with the one school that we have in our township. And when I brought this up before, this is where it got into the weeds and got complicated. And I'm suggesting let's not get it complicated by introducing all the other schools that are the children in ACW attend. Let's start where we know where to start, where it's uncomplicated. It's not to say that we can't advance it to other schools to encompass the children that go to the various schools outside of our township, outside of our boundaries. But right now, let's just start in a small way, see if there's any success for it, and make it a feel-good item.
Okay, thank you. I think the appropriate process would be to request a staff report on the process of this. So I will ask for a show of hands if we are in support to request our staff for a report. And that is supported by council. Staff clear on that? Perfect. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank council for their support on this.
Thank you. We'll now move on to 9.6, and that is the opposition to the proposed consolidation of the conservation authorities. To say it is troubling would be an understatement, and especially with the amount of lakeshore that we have here in ACW and in Huron County. As our representative on the Conservation Authority, Councillor Hickey, do you have any comments on this, please?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some of the province reasons that have come out on this are the province sees currently a patchwork of standards and service across the province, is what they're seeing from the 36 conservation authorities. Outdated, fragmented systems, administrative duplication, and need for more accountability and transparency is the reasons that we've heard from the province. The new agency they've created, the OPCA, would be responsible for developing a digital permitting platform, streamlining and standardizing service, setting provincial performance standards, maintaining and updating floodplain mapping, and overseeing the consolidation of the conservation authorities. Maitland Valley has met a couple times on this issue. Our concerns to start off is cost. There's no paperwork to show the cost savings that they're claiming on this amalgamation. It's just a word. It's going to save, and there's no proof to back that up. And the cost already that they've incurred with this OPCA, the Ontario Provincial Conservation Agency, that's already another cost that's been added to the system that wasn't there a month ago. So cost is an issue. Local responsiveness. Do the new areas make sense? Do Asable Bayfield, Maitland, and Saugeen agricultural along Lake Huron match the landscape and the geography of over in Aurelia, Newmarket, Lake Simcoe area? And do we match up in Thunder Bay, which would all be part of our new agency? So does any of that make sense? The permitting The permitting response time. Maitland Valley averages 5.7 days for a permit to go through their door. The provincial average is 12.5 days. So it'd be like back in elementary school getting put in a group and you got the one that wants to work and the one that doesn't, and you have to all come together to make it work. So that's a concern of ours. And the needs of rural communities and agricultural sector. We would be amalgamated with Asable Bayfield, Maitland, Saugeen, Grey Sauble, Nottawasaga, Lake Simcoe, and Lakehead Conservation Authorities. ACW would be one of 80 municipalities in that group. Are we gonna have someone on the board to say how our funds are being spent with 80 municipalities? How are they gonna make a board? They're trying to come to us to say, create it. They don't want, it's their idea to put this together, but they want us to have the ideas of how to make it work. 80% of funding for MVCA and all the conservation areas comes from the lower tiers, from our level, from the towns and the townships in the province. 80% is funded by us, 18% is funded by grants, counties, and foundations, 2% is funded by the province. And they're the ones that are throwing this at us to say, we want you to change, even though they have 2% in the game. Timeline that's been laid out, it's been posted for the 45 days. The deadline for comments is December 22nd of this year. Consultation process will begin early in 2026. Conservation authorities operate with the current governance until after the 2026 elections. And the implementation of changes would be January 1st, 2027 is the current layout. I have a lot of concerns with this. Maitland Valley has a lot of concerns with this. And I support the opposition that's been put forward, the staff that's come forward. And if need be, I'd make a motion for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and just hold that thought. Do we have any other questions or comments from council on this? Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I just wanted to thank Evan for that report. You're going to a lot more meetings than we expected when we put you on that board. And you're doing a good job, and thank you for being not only succinct, but someone I'm like, okay, he's on it. I don't have to be quite as well versed. He'll catch me up. So thank you.
Yep, absolutely. We have great representation from all members of council on all of our committees, and that was very intentional. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yes, I think it's very important that we go against this amalgamation because, like, we lean towards the Maitland Valley for, like, and Joy, if she's going to put out what do you call it, to have somebody build a house, then they ask for Maitland Valley's input. So that's going to put everybody back in time, which, and as Evan says, if it's all being paid for but 2%, I think they should just walk away and leave it alone. Like, we got the money in it, and if they want to pay for it all, then they have something to say. But if they don't want to pay for it all, so I would like to make sure that we support this. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we're all on the same page on this, and the only comment I'll make is that under the proposed resolution that is in print, I think it would be appropriate to include Huron County Council in this, and that would be the only addition I would have. And I would ask the permission of council that the motion, because it's in print, does not need to be read. That will be the first thing, and then I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for this. So do we have the support of council that the motion does not have to be read, however, it will include Huron County Council? Supported by council, and do we have a mover and a seconder for the resolution? And that would be Councillor Hickey and Councillor Forrester. Any further discussion? And Councillor Snoblin, please.
Question, would it benefit at all if we also included MPP, Lisa Thompson?
She is included in the motion.
Okay, good. All right, that's good. I'm fine with that. And is there anything that we can do further, Evan, that might bring this to the forefront, maybe either at Ogra or Good Roads or AMO or anything to that nature?
Okay, thank you for the question. Councillor Hickey, please.
Just this support from this level of council would be supportive right now. Maitland Valley is working hard with Conservation Ontario. I would say it's a strong against feeling amongst all municipalities, amongst all conservation areas in the province. Just so the verbal support from today would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion that's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion in print? And that is carried. Thank you very much, and thank you for your input on this, everyone, and especially our Representative Councillor Hickey. 10.1 is the Veolia Water Operations and Maintenance Report for information purposes. We've all read it. Any questions or comments on this? Seeing none. 10.2 is the Huron Sands Drinking Water System. Again, the report for information purposes. Questions or comments? Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, a question for Tom through you, I guess. On page 4 of the 18, non-compliance, the ministry was inspecting and they said it's noted the biweekly microbiological samples, blah, 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 for May 2025 were not collected, although the lead and alkalinity samples were collected. The operating authority is aware of the non-compliance and has taken steps to address the sampling oversight. I mean, I'm glad that they're doing what they're supposed to do, but I think the people who on the water system pay quite a bit of money for them to do their job properly. Did we comment that why aren't you doing the samples you're charging us for? That's my question.
For the question, Tom, please.
Yeah, so when anything like that happens, there's a series of emails that go around, and the Ron Burrell, the officer, contacts them and us and lets us know that obviously it's unacceptable, and it's reflected in our score. So obviously we got dinged 5% on our overall score. So I think at that point there was a different overall responsible operator than there is today. I'm confident in their ability to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
You're good with that? Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I am good with that, and that you answered exactly as I suspected you would answer, but it's our job to ask, which is why I asked. So, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Any additional questions or comments on this? Not, thank you for that. We have nothing under drainage. We do have our Public Works Activity Report. It is for information purposes. Any questions or comments of Tom in this report? Okay, do we have any committee reports from any members of council that they would like to share at this time? Councillor Blake, please.
Yeah, thank you. A little bit of good news from the Miller Hall Committee. Euchre Night's going well. They have some Christmas events going on. And then a little bit of bad news. We did lose one of our members. Unfortunately, he passed away a few days ago, so our thoughts are with them on that, him and his family. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Blake, and we concur. Our condolences are extended. Any additional committee reports? Councillor Hickey, please.
Thank you. For the Community Alliance, coming up this weekend, December the 6th, is Christmas in the Country on Saturday during the day from 9 till 2. Big event. In past years, the Ag Hall and the Community Center are usually full with tables with vendors, crafts, and sweets and all that stuff. So it's an excellent day to get out and do some Christmas shopping and support the community. And then in the evening is Christmas in the Park we're having. Caroling, hot chocolate and treats Saturday night at 7 o'clock in the park on the main street. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that, and that park certainly looks great. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, this is a St. Helens report. I was speaking with Barb last week. While initially the February 14th roast beef dinner was canceled, as of last week they were going to do it, and they were hoping to sell as they usually do, the tickets as Christmas presents. So in theory, they will be on sale. Just a heads up, that was what was going on last week. Okay?
Thank you for that. Any additional committee reports? Seeing none, I thank you. Is there any new business that anyone would like to bring up for a future meeting at this time? Councillor Snowden, please.
Yes, and I'm sure Councillor Miltenberg is aware. Was speaking with someone from the St. Helens community and the committee, and because of the recent passing of Mr. Snowden, there's some issue about the snow removal there. And I would just kindly ask staff to maybe reach out or look into what that snow removal might, the problems might be. I don't want to go into too much detail in a public forum on it, but there was an issue, and I could speak privately with staff if they were interested in finding out what the issue is. But perhaps Councillor Miltenberg is aware of it and can do it in a little bit discreet fashion on my behalf.
Thank you for that, Councillor Miltenberg. Do you care to make any comments at this time?
The board is in conversations. That is the responsibility of the Board of St. Helens, and it will be handled appropriately, and staff will be made aware of it when decisions are made.
I believe it was in terms of payment.
Anita, that's the role of the St. Helens Hall. I'm aware of it. This is, it's being handled. Thank you.
Okay. Go to that. Thank you. Councillor Blake, please.
Yeah, thank you. I had some discussions with some members on the committee, the Brookside School Board trustees and whatnot. The Minister of Education has made some comments regarding the potential removal of school board trustees, potentially even by year end, sorry. Nothing is official yet. I just wanted to bring that to light and make everybody aware of it. And at the very least, I'd like to follow this closely as a council with regards to potentially putting in a letter of support in opposition to his comments. But I'd also entertain the idea of potentially sending a letter sooner. As I said, nothing's set in stone yet, but the comments were a little concerning. Thank you.
Okay, so would you like this on an agenda for a future meeting for discussion or not?
Yeah, if council would be in support of sending a letter to the Minister of Education, our local MPs and whatnot, just stating that the comments have been heard and have been talked about at school boards. It has been brought to our attention from the school board that they would also look for some support in opposition to his thought of removing school board trustees.
Okay, so I think the correct process would be to have this as an agenda item at a future meeting for discussion. Is that your intent?
Yes, it would be.
Okay, and we have heard the comments, and I'm going to ask if council is in support of this for new business agenda item at a future meeting. Show of hands, please. And that is supported by council. Thank you. Is there anything additional for new business for a future meeting? Seeing none, we have nothing for correspondence for direction. We do have some items for information purposes. Is there anything that anyone would like to discuss under that? And I'll go to Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I'd like to make some comments on 16.4 and 16.7. Wayne Caldway, well, I'm not sure if... I saw Wayne at Municipal Ag Forum. I was lobbying, as I did with many, many farmers. Put your name in to see if you can, maybe you're interested in being on the, whatever the committee is that we just struck. And he was unavailable, but he said he could send some helpful comments, because I said his experience, really, you would bring a lot to it, which I said to everybody, by the way. And so he did send some comments, which I'm sure will be forwarded to the newly formed board, but he also says something about thanks for the opportunity for asking or whatever. That was me saying, well, if you can't do it, make comments or whatever. The second one I wanted to talk about was 16.7. I felt it was very unfair to Councillor Snowblin. She and her significant other, who own the same property, were both made appearances at open forum. There was going to be no meeting of the minds. I take full responsibility as the chair of that committee. She did indicate to me she did not feel she was being answered properly. I told her that I personally would answer her questions. and I told her it had to be her top 20 because she had an excess of 50 questions, and many of them were around the same subject. So I said, you send me your top 20 questions, and I will make sure they are answered to your satisfaction, and they never came forward. But she was very upset, and there was no answer that was going to satisfy her, and she was very angry with the people who tried to answer her because I do not believe she was in a mental state to listen to the answers because she was too upset. So I just wanted to make it clear that I thought Councillor Snoblin did a great job, and this was an unfair attack on her character. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anything additionally that anyone would like to make comment on for information purposes? The Roma conference is coming up. Councillors Hickey, Miltenberg, Snoblin, and myself are registered for that, and Councillor Forrester and myself for OGRA. I will now entertain a mover and a seconder, and I will read the motion to move into a closed session, and that be that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council move into a closed session in accordance with Section 239 in brackets 2 and brackets C of the Municipal Act, with the CAO and Deputy Clerk remaining in attendance at 11:15 a.m. for the purpose of discussing proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or the local board. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Blake and Councillor Forrester. All in favor of the motion is read. That is carried, and we will take a break for, how long would you like, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Deputy Clerk, to secure the meeting? Okay, 10 minutes. We will resume at 11:25. Thank you. We are in recess. If we come back in 5, can you give Okay, we're back in our open session recording. There's nothing to report out of our closed session. I will entertain a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw, please. Councillor Blake moves, Councillor Miltenberg seconds, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 69-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Council meeting held on the 2nd day of December 2025, and then are now be read severally, a first, second, and third time, and finally pass the 2nd day of December 2025. All in favor of the motion is read. That is carried, and a motion to adjourn our meeting is Deputy Mayor Vanstone and Councillor Hickey, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council does now adjourn to meet again on the 16th day of December 2025 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the mayor. All in favor of this motion? That is carried. Thank you very much for all members for your thoughtful input today. Meeting is adjourned.